Hey everybody, welcome in. We're going to give folks a couple seconds to just settle their video and their audio preferences and we'll jump into it. But it's so good to see everybody in the new month of September. Got some exciting news next month. We're probably going to have some intro music for you guys so that when you come in, there'll be a nice little mood setting, which will be pretty fun. But again, for those of you guys just joining, welcome in. We're going to give folks about 10, 20 more seconds to settle audio and video preferences, and then we will jump right in. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here today. Alrighty, so welcome to our Edge 3.0 Edge user group. It's September 15th, 2022, and we're so excited and grateful that you guys have taken an hour out of your day to join us so that we can share some really exciting updates about our database and have some time for questions at the very end. For those of you guys who haven't been with us on our Edge user group before, haven't used Zoom, there are a couple features I just want you guys to be aware of. We have our Q&A feature on the very bottom. Now we do have time at the very end for our Q&A, but if you guys have a question and you want to make sure that it's recorded somewhere, please use that Q&A feature on the very bottom. We also encourage you guys to engage in our chat section if you want to post your thoughts or suggestions in there. Just make sure that you're hitting everyone when selecting who you're sending it to. And finally, this session is recorded, so just got to say that so you know what you're walking into. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm joined today by really three of the coolest colleagues: Drew Carlisle, Julia Funaki, as well as Jasmine Saidi Kunert. I think I said that right. And I'm actually going to pass the mic over to Jasmine so she can tell you a little bit about our IESC board.
Thank you so much, Christina. And yes, you pronounced it beautifully. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I just want to give a big shout out to everyone who is joining me on this panel today, and a warm welcome to our new attendees, and an equally warm welcome to our returning attendees. For those who are joining us today for the first time, I'd like to give you a brief introduction on the IESC, which is the International Standards Education Council. We are a group of volunteers, diehards in international education, and we represent public and private institutions of higher education, as well as credential evaluation agency. We have been given this incredible opportunity to be kind of the overseers of the ACRO EDGE, the electronic database of global education. And our role is to review the country profiles, the credentials, the credential advice, the grading scales, and references. And we review any research that is submitted by invited authors who could make incredible contributions to EDGE. And our role is to review those, to assess their findings, and also vote on the placement recommendations or the credential advice, the comparability of the credentials in terms of the US system of higher education. So we are being tasked with a great level of responsibility. Our colleagues do incredible due diligence. Everyone on the IESC goes over and beyond in the research and double checking. So the work that you see is really done through a lot of blood and tears of our representatives or volunteers on the IESC. We're also very pleased to have fellows, typically 2 individuals selected from a pool of candidates who apply for this wonderful opportunity each year. And these fellows are then assigned a particular research project. Previous research projects were on the offshore medical schools. Another one was on, excuse me, on the 13th year. And so these are the kind of topics that we tackle. And so we're going to open the applications for the fellows for 2024. This will soon be announced. And we hope that those of you who are interested in research and taking a deeper dive into a particular topic will take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. And in closing, EDGE, the IESC meets once every 2 weeks. And that's when we tackle many of the questions that you have brought to the attention of EDGE via our online question section. And we also just address anything new that's popped up. So without further ado, I'm going to now turn this over to Julia to take the poll. And we have a great agenda for you. Here you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine, and thanks for all the good work that the IESC does for the community and for EDGE in particular. We are going to launch our poll now. Christina, if you would launch that poll for us. We use this poll every time we meet with you all, and there are just a few questions, and we'd like you to take time now to give us a single choice on each of these three. Are you an EDGE subscriber? Yes or no? Is this your first EDGE user group? Yes or no? And what segment do you represent? Are you institutional staff, evaluation staff, government, or a law firm? And while you're doing that, let me just say Happy New Year to you all, because I always feel that the beginning of September represents the new year for most of the work that we do. We're looking at a new class coming in. We're looking at the new academic year beginning. So this is really, to me, what seems like the new year for us.
So I figure we should introduce some news advice for Indian secondary grading scales since it's a new year.
Yes, why not? Why not?
We'll do that today. We'll also talk about some post-secondary education grading scales that are in use in Bangladesh. We'll go in and talk about, there have actually been a couple of things that we want to address in Cambodia and also in Lesotho. Many of those actually came from you, the user, submitting those questions. We really appreciate that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. I think Lesotho in general, I think that came in from one of you. What do we have coming up that we want people to know about, Julia?
Oh, all kinds of things coming up. Between the TICEP conference that's coming up in October in just under a month. We also want to keep you updated on what we're doing on on-demand learning, as well as some other opportunities for you. Thanks, Jasmine. You're letting us know who's joining us from the IESC today. We appreciate that. And September 11th, Eritrean New Year. So double Happy New Year. Christina, how are we doing on the poll? We ready to
I
go?
was just about to pop in and say the poll's been launched for about 2 minutes. We have about 93% participation, which is awesome. And these are looking pretty cool. So there are a couple people who aren't EDGE subscribers, which is exciting. Welcome. And the vast majority are. So again, welcome back. And this is really cool because about 30% of our attendees are first-time EDGE user group attendees. So welcome in, guys. It's so exciting to have you here. And then, as per usual, the majority of those attending are institutional staff. We have some folks from the evaluation services and one individual from the government. So welcome, guys. Thanks for participating in that poll.
Wonderful. Thank you all for taking the time to answer the poll. And with that, I am turning it over. Drew, are you handing it off?
I think we're going to start down. I believe we're beginning in Bangladesh, and Shelby's going to talk about this with us. Shelby, here, catch.
Yes, thank you very much. I caught it. Hi, everybody. I am delighted to share with you an update that's been recently made in EDGE regarding post-secondary education grading scale. As Drew mentioned earlier, a lot of the stuff that we are asked to look at comes from EDGE users, and this was one such issue. An EDGE user asked about current grading scales in the post-secondary programs in Bangladesh. And so we did a little bit of research. We've added the uniform grading scale, which has been in place since 2006, 2007. Per the University Grants Commission in Bangladesh, this is supposed to be for all public and private universities, but you'll notice there'll be some variation on, say, the percentages or the grade points at private institutions. So the recommendations that are in place now show the indigenous grade percentage, the letter grades, descriptors, grade points, and a suggested US equivalence. But just a reminder that you may need to look at the transcript key itself just to make sure that what you're looking at lines up with the recommendations, because this can vary. A little side note that's not specifically for Bangladesh, but if, like me, you've been very anxious that the Indian University Grants website has been down for quite a long time. Thankfully, I'm happy to report that it's now up and running again. So you should be able to access that. And with that, I will hand the floor on over.
Okay, hello everyone. So we are going to continue with the grading scale theme, but it will be at the secondary level in Cambodia. This was actually something that was raised by our colleague Robert Watkins on the IESC. He noticed that the secondary grading scale in EDGE was incomplete. The elementary and secondary education system in Cambodia is 12 years with a 6+3+3 structure. So that means 6 years of primary, 3 years of lower secondary, and then 3 years of upper secondary. At the very end, students take a national examination, which leads to the Diploma of Upper Secondary Education. Now, the national exam uses letter grades, A through E for passing grades, and then the letter F for fail grades. And this is what is reflected or was reflected on EDGE. However, if we have students that have not yet reached the national examinations and earned the Diploma of Upper Secondary Education, you would not see letter grades. School assessments are 0 to 100, and that was missing from the secondary grading scales on EDGE. So that has been updated. Next slide, please. So just to show you more context so you can see what we're looking at, this is an example of a high school transcript. And there are 3 super columns, if you will, for semester 1, semester 2, and then the annual. So they have within those super columns, one column, sub-column, if you will, for the marks earned, and then another sub-column for the corresponding rank. The maximum marks, it's important to note, can vary by subject. And unfortunately, the maximum marks are not typically listed on the academic records. They do tend to be standardized, and you can get that information from the Ministry of Education if you dig deep enough in their website. So like you would for India, you would take the maximum marks, the marks earned, to calculate the percentage grade. On to the next slide, please. So here's an example. If one is in the science stream, there are 2 main streams, the science and the social science stream. So here, since it's a science stream, mathematics is worth the most with the maximum marks of 125, and then followed by Khmer literature, and then physics, chemistry, and biology, since this is a science stream. Now, if you had a student in social science stream, instead, Khmer literature would be 125 maximum marks, and then you would have morality and civics, history and geography with more weight at 75 instead. So the maximum weight would be different depending on the stream, if you will. On to the next slide. So this is our updated grading scale, which now includes the percentage system. And the important thing to note is that the letter grade of E, or 50%, is the lowest passing grade. Next slide. So just a couple more fun tidbits, if you will. On the Diploma of Upper Secondary Education, the student takes 7 national examinations or 7 subjects. So those results are listed in a box on the diploma. And depending on the grade is color-coded, likely as a security feature. So if a student earned a grade of A, it would be red. Grade of B would be pink, C brown, D green, E blue, and then F black, just to help things along. And then any important information like the total number of subjects passed, or the final mark or average, if you will, that's also listed in red on the diploma. Next slide. One other interesting thing to note about F grades is that F grades can be possible for individual subjects. This presumably is left over from the French colonial influence. They can still earn the diploma if they have 1, 2, 3 even F grades, as long as the total minimum marks has been reached. So that's Cambodia and secondary grading. On to Drew.
Hey, thank you, Emily. So we're going to go down into Lesotho, and we're actually going to be talking about the General Certificate of Secondary Education. And this is one of those questions that, as we've mentioned, came from you. Rory, this came from you. And so we're specifically going to answer, does Lesotho use the General Certificate of Secondary Education? Pose the question through the EDGE website. If you go in on every page with an EDGE, there's a way to contact us. There's a little box that says contact us. You can go right in there. There's an opportunity to upload documents that have been redacted if we need that, so that we can really see what you're talking about. But once you send that question in, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to take advantage of a feature that we have in EDGE 3.0, and that's to use our bookmarks. So our bookmarks are going to alert you when there's a significant update made in a profile. A new grading scale comes out, a new credential gets posted, advice gets updated, something that the IESC has researched. We've gotten in touch with the ministry. We've looked at primary source documents. There is evidence and cause to change what's going on. You're going to get a notification if you've signed up for a bookmark on that country. So if you want to test it out, see how it works, tomorrow tonight, in between today and tomorrow, when the moon is out, we're going to be posting Lesotho. And so if you go in and you decide to activate that bookmark, you can see where Christina's cursor was showing the relative location in the Lesotho little image down there. You'll click that little bookmark, and then the next time you log into EDGE, you'll be notified if there have been any changes made. So I recommend you do that whenever you submit a request for an update, because that way you are going to be informed precisely when the IESC has made that update in there. Robert, you want to talk about the update that the IESC actually made?
Sure. Thanks, Drew, for that explanation. He started by giving you Rory Wallace's question about the fact that he looked in EDGE Lesotho and did not see the LGCSE. And so he asked us about it because he noted that in a publication that perhaps some of you use if you deal with international athletes, the NCAA guide on international athletes did include it, the most recent one does have it in there. So he naturally asked, why wasn't it an EDGE? Well, it didn't take much research, let me tell you. We certainly found out that indeed it was introduced in 2013. It was introduced as a result of criticism internally in country about the fact that the Cambridge Overseas School Certificate, the COSC, really was an imported UK product. It didn't necessarily address the cultural needs of the students of Lesotho. So they put together their own external examination. You can see that using that Anglophone model, that it plays off of GCSE, only it's the LGCSE. It is an external exam, but it's homegrown rather than an imported product. The first exams were in 2014. By 2016, there was full implementation. Not sure exactly what that means. It's possible that you could see something from 2014 or 15 that still might be a COSC. Let me just throw in a reminder too. Don't forget that in most things, and then in all Anglophone countries, really, there could also be an imported model still that a private student might, or a private school student might use, such as the IGCSE and so forth. But this is the national external exam now, and it has been since 2014. And of course, though, it's simply it's a different exam, but essentially it concludes, as did the COSC, 2 years of upper secondary school following the JCE, the Junior Certificate of Education, and then leads to post-secondary education. So naturally, our credential advice was the same as what we had for COSC, and that is comparable to completion of senior high school in the United States. And with that, I think I'm turning it over to Leslie for India.
Thank you, Robert. India, yes, one of our big sending countries. What we wanted to accomplish with these updates to secondary school grading in India was to align our EDGE scales more closely with what you actually see on the documents themselves. Jump on in. Christina, next slide, please. Okay, so the way we separated this out was by looking at the national boards. Two of the national boards that we see a lot are the Central Board of Secondary Education and the Council for the Indian School Certificate Examination. So we focused on those two to begin. So what we had previously in EDGE was this for both Standard 10 and Standard 12. And this shows positional rank and gave suggested grade equivalence. And that is something that you see on certificates, but it isn't everything you see on certificates. In addition to that, there was a change to the grading scale. So we wanted to bring this up to what you're actually seeing. So what we've done to update in EDGE is to give you that new Indigenous percentage scale. So up on the top right there, you see the 100 scale that goes all the way down to 33. Those grades are correlated with letter/number grades. And sometimes you even see the 10 scale implemented at the secondary level. Not everywhere, not all the time. But we added that. We added a section, a small table on internal subjects, because you'll also see those on the certificate. So internal subjects might be things like PE or health education or possibly art, and those are graded on a different scale. So we included that for you too. There was one tiny change we made that was just actually a typographical error, because previously it used to say Central Board of Secondary Examination. We changed that to its actual name, which is Central Board of Secondary Education. Let's see. Some other things that changed for the CDSE, minimum pass 33%. So you'll see that on that percent scale that we had on the previous slide. So moving on to this, this is the, thank you. You can move forward. Okay, so now we're looking at Council for the Indian School Certificate examinations. And do we have a previous slide, Christina?
Yep, we were on that one. Sorry, I got a little bit confused.
Okay, no, sorry, I got a little off kilter here. Yeah, this is again what we had indicated positional grades, and we wanted you to see the scales that are actually the precursor to these positionals. So next slide, please. And so what we've done here is give you not only the percent scale, which is very common in India, and some notes about that, such as the top 10 to 25 individuals who secure the highest total marks are classed as rank holders. So just a little tip for you. Another thing that's can be a little bit confusing is that the lowest pass mark might vary depending on the year. So you'll always want to be looking at the scale that's shown on generally the reverse side of the certificate. Some other things to point out, at Standard 10, you've got certificates actually awarded with the grades of 1 through 9. So if you see a certificate from this exam board, you'll see those grades of 1 through 9. If you see a statement of marks, you'll see the percent scale. Okay, so that can get a little bit confusing. For Standard 10, the lowest passing grade, you'll see there on the percent scale is 33%. And then one slide forward, please. Okay, there's a Standard 12 certificate. And next slide. That's what we had in EDGE before, just like with the Standard 10. So move ahead. Okay, and here we give you it's almost exactly the same thing for standard 12 as for standard 10 for the CISCE, except that at standard 12, the lowest passing grade is 35. So it's a small distinction, but it could make a difference for your applicants. And again, I would look at the reverse of the certificate to be sure you understand what you're looking at when you get these certificates. Next slide, please. Okay, now we moved on to the state boards. We have 52, at last count, 52 state boards of secondary and higher secondary education in India. And while they follow a general pattern that looks similar, they're not all exactly the same. Okay, so what we previously had in EDGE was this sort of a general grading system for standard 10 with the numbers 1 through 9 and then descriptors. What we've updated to is something that looks a lot like what we saw with the national boards as well, but that percent scale. This was introduced in about 2009. And so you'll see on the certificates, the percent scale. We have a note here that certificates issued after 2015 will also include the positional grades right on the certificate. Lowest passing mark was changed to 33. So they're on the percent scale, but again, always check the certificate. Thank you. That's it for this, for the India secondary school grading.
So I know that coming up, we've got a few different things that we really want to highlight for you. Julia, have you booked your travel?
I have, and let's go to the next slide because booking travel has to do with attending the TISEP conference, which is going to be held October 14th to the 17th in beautiful Glasgow, Scotland. ACRA and TISEP have established a framework for current and future collaboration, and that's a fairly recently newly minted and signed memorandum of understanding. And you'll see there that one of the features of that is that TISEP members will now have EDGE member rates available to them. So that's kind of a nice perk for everybody out there that might pertain to. Also at Glasgow, 3 of us are going to be there presenting. Annetta Stroud will be conducting a workshop in Credential Evaluation 101. That's a pre-conference workshop. And my good colleague Dave Mahali and I will be presenting sessions on India and Myanmar. So please, if you're there, come say hi to us. We hope you will be joining us. IESC members will also be at TISEP, so say hi to them as well if you are there. Oh, Shelby, I'm sorry you won't be there, but it's really a great opportunity to engage and learn with your colleagues. So just wanted to mention that. Next slide.
Well, before we go on from there, just one thing to mention for everyone about that that EDGE rate, if you're a TISEP member, be on the lookout for that. You're going to see that once you log in to the TISEP website. It's not there right now, but it will be there in the near future, and through that form, you'll be able to connect right with us, and that's how you sign up to get that member rate. But so it's not there right now. Just want to let you know that it's something that we are opening up, and just something that is available for you. So we can go on to the next slide now. Thanks for indulging me there.
Thanks, Drew. We also have our ACRA On Demand Learning Series, the international series specifically. We'd like you to take a look at. If you're at all interested in any kind of training, you'll see down there all the topics that are covered. So I believe there are 9 of them now, and they all utilize an interactive approach with some hands-on exercises, homework, and the opportunity to earn a badge. So why not, right? And they are available at any time. So when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and need something to review, we have it for you. All right, so that's about it. I want to turn it over to Drew to tell you a little bit more, and once again remind you about the opportunity for the Gloria Nathanson Fund.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Julia. The Gloria Nathanson Fund, it really is a way to encourage research and really pushing out good information in the field. We really want to take away and defray some of those costs, some of those barriers that are preventing you from getting some of that work done. So if you're looking to get into some research or really just address specific topics, we can work with you on some funding for a full country profile, making some substantive updates, and like I mentioned, white papers on specific topics. All the research that was done for offshore medical schools, that was incredibly useful, and that was a topic that people found really helpful. Is there something that you've found that you've really done a lot of research on, you've assembled it, but you don't quite know what to do with it? We want to help you get that published and pushed out there so that everyone can see that primary research that you've been working on. So reach out to us through the website. The Gloria Nathanson Fund is marked through there, and we'll be able to help you out. There's also a QR code. And Julia, as soon as you come back off of mute, we will do some Q&A. I know that we had, I saw there was a question about the presence or lack thereof of the D concept, but I think that got moved over from the chat into the Q&A. If anyone out there has questions, the best place to put that is the Q&A, and that way we'll be able to go through and kind of have that list assembled. So Julia, what do we have to start us off?
Shocking, but most of the questions are about India. So Leslie, we're going to probably bring you back, and anybody else from the IESC that would like to chime in as well. So the first one that Drew mentioned is that for both Indian certificates, I noticed that a USD equivalent is no longer reported, and they're wondering if there's any comment on that.
I was wondering which certificates we're referring to.
I'm thinking he's referring to, hold on, I had it here. The Council for Indian School certificate, is that correct? I think. And
I think participants can unmute themselves. Is that correct?
yes, is that
If
Todd?
you wanted to just clarify.
Yes, they should be able to unmute themselves, but I'm also flipping through the slide deck to see if we can find that specific example that they're referencing.
Todd, if you're able to unmute and you want to.
If we're talking about the difference between the scale, the new scale that shows 91 to 100 as being A1, all the way down to 33 to 40 being a D, versus the Council for the Indian School Certificate Exam scale that shows 60, 50, 35 being equivalent to A, B, and C. The difference, in my opinion, although I would have to do a little more research to get a broader perspective on that, is that the Council for the Indian School Certificate is still using the more traditional scale, the percent scale, whereas the scale for the Central Board of Secondary Education, with all the A1, A2, B1 correlated to the smaller percent bands, is just a more recent / modern scale. So I think that India is moving toward scales that look a lot more like US scales, and they've made smaller bands rather than those broad bands that are more part of the traditional, the 60 to 100, 50 to 59, 33 to 49. If anybody has a thought on that?
Leslie,
At the risk of interrupting, I noticed that it was in the previous, in the scales with the previous, or what's currently in Edge, there was a D range for some of these that now in the updated one, I'm not seeing a USD equivalent. And so I just wondered if there was some comment about why that USD equivalent appears to have fallen by the wayside.
This is Robert. I think Emily may be the best one, but if I recall correctly, we had a discussion on this. And I must confess that I don't like Ds. I don't like to see Ds out in the rest of the world where I know they seldom exist. But it was Emily that did some research and found that the 8 pass was described in such a way as to truly sound like an unsatisfactory pass. I don't remember further details. Emily may be able to chime in.
Yes,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
this is Emily. So no, it was basically, yeah, that it went from the lowest passing grade to a fail in terms of the descriptors, and there wasn't this idea of a marginal pass. So when we've clarified that, we tend to do away with any D equivalents. But as Leslie mentioned, you do see some shifts in certain instances towards a more US style grading scale, and in those situations, you will see the D equivalent. So it
And
can vary.
It can vary, yeah. Thanks, Emily and Robert. I just wanted to add in that we talk about this all the time. This is a kind of a favorite topic, what to do with the D, and whether when we're doing our applied comparative education, does the D exist as a concept in other countries and in other educational systems? So it's kind of fluid. There is no one answer about the D. But I really appreciate Emily's research, especially about that 8. I had forgotten about that, Emily, but that's what kind of nailed it for us.
Okay, thank you. I think we've addressed that fairly well at this point. So let's go on to another question, which is that it says, hi, I'm not sure why the percent scale is different for the CBSE and CISCE are so varied in terms of US equivalence. The exams by themselves are not different. So that sounds more like a statement, but wondering why they're different.
Yeah, it sounds like we addressed that with our discussion about the D, because the CISCE has the minimum pass as a C. And I think that's what the question is. Why does the CBSE go down to D? So
if there's more to that, we encourage you to write in.
Exactly.
No. Okay, and then Ina has a question. She says, in India and for Canada, Punjab State Education Board is by far the biggest sender. They are using alpha grade scales now as well. What is IESC thinking about those so far? Anybody?
Thanks, Ina. I have to confess, I haven't seen that with 50. What did I say? 52 boards. I didn't review all of them. So if you would like to share a copy of a redacted certificate with us, we would love to see it. Thank you. I see your response. Awesome.
Great. And that points up a great point, Leslie and Ina. Thank you both for that. If you have questions about something specific, it's always very, very helpful for the IESC to see an actual document. So to take that document and redact it and then submit it, we're much more likely to get right on it because we have something to look at rather than trying to find something that addresses whatever the question might be. We do have one more question from Terrell. Any updates to this ECTS to US grade conversions, or do you recommend to visit the country grade conversions? Who wants to take that?
I'll jump in, Julia. First of all, we need to remember that in the Bologna process, as part of the European higher education area, while a number of things were mandated, such as length of degrees could not be less than 3, had to use diploma supplements, quality assurance mechanisms, all of that, all those features. The one thing, and of course, the use of ECTS credits was mandated, but the use of the ECTS grading scale was not. And I'm not sure, Terrell, if I understand fully the question, but let me answer it the way I think you're asking it. And that is, when you see a document that's from a Bologna compliant, a Bologna signatory country, and there's 2 grading scales, and increasingly we're starting to see this. We're starting to see countries put out transcripts that have the indigenous grading scale in one column and then the ECTS equivalent, or what they think is the ECTS equivalent. What I always do is I ignore the ECTS grading scale, because 9.5 times out of 10, they're using their own indigenous one. They're simply trying to show that they're part of the process, that they've got that in mind, that it's there, but it's not mandatory to use it. So more often than not, they're going to use the indigenous one and then give you the ECTS grade scale equivalent as best they feel it should match. Because of course, the European higher education area itself, the Secretariat did not, and the ministers did not say, okay, this is what you should do with the grading scale and your own indigenous grading scale that you use. So I would say simply default to the local scale, the country scale, and not use the ECTS grading scale, even when it appears on the document.
We think we have one more question. Let's see here. Are bachelor's degrees from German universities of applied sciences, Fachhochschule, comparable to a U.S. bachelor's degrees and thus would grant admission to a U.S. master's degree? I think there's a couple of you that might reply to this one.
Yeah, we've got a couple of folks that know a couple of things about the German education system. I'm going to imagine they're going to pop onto the screen in 3, 2, 1.
Leslie, you want to go ahead first?
Robert, you go ahead. I'll chime in.
Okay. Well, of course, first of all, as we look at it from a quantitative, an appearance, construction, well, not construction, but in terms of format, there's no difference, obviously. They're both 3-year degrees, predicated on 180 ECTS. Now, what the 180 ECTS might be composed of, now that's where it's going to differ. And I think that's the reason for the question. Because as we know, a Fachhochschule or University of Applied Sciences is not a university. You can have, there's a slightly, and I got to be careful here, or Leslie's really going to jump on me. There's a slightly lesser credential that's required to get into a Fachhochschule, and that's the Fachhochschulreife, as opposed to the Zeugnis
Abitur.
Allgemein. Yeah, Abitur. That's better. Thank you. And so yeah, on the surface there is a slight difference there, but and of course the content. The Fachhochschule degree will always. They both have a thesis, but the Fachhochschule will always have a component, and I can't tell you an exact number of ECTS credits, something on the order of 10 or 15 maybe, that are part of a work project, a technical project that is work related and that you wouldn't see in a university bachelor's degree. Now, in terms of advice, you know what we say in EDGE. Once Germany had gone to, or the German states, I should correct myself, the 16 German states had gone to a G8, a Gymnasium 8 format, as opposed to a G9, where it was 12 years instead of 13. We quit recommending credit for that. As you know, most of the states are now returning to G9 because of the difficulties in trying to complete the curriculum, which did not change one bit when it went down from G9 to G8. They just had one less year in which to complete the curriculum. And so for that reason, they were, many people still gave credit even after Germany the states went to a 12-year system. But now that they're returning to a 13-year one, might one suggest credit? And we haven't had that conversation in IESC yet. I know what I'm doing at UT. I need an excuse to accept that German 3-year degree, and this returning to a G9 sequence is exactly what I need. And so I'm going to jump on that. the West World Education News and Reviews did a wonderful article last year, which I downloaded one page of, which told me the status of G8 and G9 in all the German states. And so I have that as a guide to follow as I watch incoming applicants to UT Austin who are from Germany. Leslie, I'll stop and turn it over to you.
Oh, no, you really covered it, Robert. I mean, we used to be able to hang our hats on year counting and say that the Fachhochschulreife, which was 12 years, plus a Fachhochschule degree or University of Applied Sciences degree being 3 years, 12 plus 3, we said not admissible to graduate programs. Now that the Germans are changing, and the Abitur, I should add the Abitur, the university preparatory high school credential was 13. And so we'd say 13 plus 3 equals 16. We're more comfortable with that. Now that Germany is, which is actually the education system operates at the state level under a federal framework. And so the states have some flexibility to adapt the length of their secondary school credentials. In any case, I think my answer to whether students who have studied at a University of Applied Science are prepared for graduate study really depends on what type of U.S. institution you are. These students have a more hands-on applied education, much less theory. The question always is to me, are they prepared for graduate study, which will involve research? So yeah, it's one of those situations where it really has to bounce back to the receiving institution. If they are prepared, if you believe that they're prepared for graduate programs at your institution with their more hands-on applied knowledge, then I would say you could make an argument for admitting them. We wouldn't here at Seattle University.
I would just like to add that alongside my nonsensical year counting or attempting to year count based on G8 versus G9, I will say that in terms of the Fachhochschule bachelor degree, even though it's 3 years and it's applied and all that, and it may be in the same field, I would not admit one ever to the University of Texas because that 3-year degree can be accessed by the 12-year Fachhochschulreife from a Fachhochschule, from a technical high school. There will never be a 13-year situation in that pathway. So the only time I'm going to take a German bachelor's degree would be from a university, and only if it's preceded by a clear G9 Abitur.
All right. If that's our final word on that, we'll go on to the next question. But thank you very much, Robert and Leslie, for that in-depth answer. So we have a question on Russian University Degree Docs Online and asking if there's a way to verify Russian University degrees online. The student indicated that they were having difficulty in obtaining official documents, and I think that has been an issue lately. Anybody want to take that?
Julia, you're the Russia expert.
Oh, I don't know about that. I do think, and Dave might have might want to pipe in here too, but I think that has been a difficult question. A difficult issue is getting that online verification. I think you can still write to institutions, but I think the online verification has been down. Dave, do you have any different information than I on that?
I agree with you completely. Haven't been able to use the online site to do any document verification for some time.
Yeah, so it has been down for a while, but do indeed try to write directly to the institution and see if you get any response at that point. There's a lot going on there, and we'll update you as we know more on that whole situation, but it looks like the Russians' involvement, even with the Bologna Bologna process, is really in jeopardy. So a lot going on. We have another question from Matthew Colbert, and it says, I am having trouble accessing the recognition resources for Armenia, ArmENIC. Many of the site's info pages appear as coming soon. Anyone experienced this before? And any tips? I had not seen that.
I just, this is Shelby. I just posted a comment in the chat box because I wasn't sure if we were going to get to this question. But I'll be honest and say that I don't use this site very often myself because we don't have very many Armenian educated applicants, but I'm on the site right now and I'm not seeing that. I may not be clicking on the same pages that Matthew was looking at. Is there a specific page that you're trying to access?
If you could either type that in
Yeah.
for us to know.
If you'd like to type in your email address and tell me what page it is that you're looking at, it seems to be working for me right now. I'd be happy to PDF it for you and send it to you.
Thanks, Shelby. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
And my other suggestion would be sometimes these sites just do this. And so I tried to look up the page in a recently saved version in the Wayback Machine on the Internet Archive. And sometimes that's been helpful for me as well. So just a little tip.
And it looks like Matthew's giving you his email as well.
I wanted to suggest something super simple, and that is try a different browser. Maybe you've already done that, but sometimes that helps.
Correct.
I noticed there's a question about Philippine universities, somebody in the chat box. Let me
Oh,
just
in the
quickly
chat?
say,
Go ahead
yeah.
and read it, Robert.
Oh, okay. It said, having trouble with finding accreditation for Philippine university programs, site not working for us. I'm not sure the site that they're referring to. The historical one, well, historically, we published one when the book came out in 2001. It was so large that the CHED listing of recognized institutions that we had to do it put it online, www.peerbooks.org. And I think it's still there in the Wayback Machine. CHED, Commission on Higher Education, does have a very nice website. I was on it a few days ago, so if that's the one that's not working, that's a bummer. But the problem is you need to know what region the university is in. The Philippines is politically divided, politically used with a small p, is divided into regions, with Manila being the capital area region, CAR, and then the rest of them are all numerical. And I don't even remember which is which. So if you can find out what region that your university that you're looking at is located in, then you can go in and find out the listing of recognized by CHED universities in that region. And I had it work for me fairly well, but I don't know. I haven't done that for a few days now, so I can't swear to you that it's still working.
I was just in there on Sunday to check something, and I had it working. So.
Oh, good.
Yep, same. It's up right now for me.
Yeah, can you drop the link in there?
Already did.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I also wanted to quickly point out Ina's message in the group chat. She said the ACRO International Listserv is an amazingly useful resource for folks to ask questions like the ones that you guys are asking here as well. So if you're running into those sites not working, or if you have questions, definitely send them to us as well. But pop them into the international listserv, because there's a lot of folks trying to navigate the same questions that you likely have, and they'll be able to kind of think tank it like we're doing right now.
And once again, we encourage you, if you ever have an update that you know of, that you redact documents and send them off to us. The IESC is very hardworking and really does look at those questions and anything that you send in. So please don't hesitate to send it in to us. Any other questions? I'm going in the Q&A. I think we have one more. Oh, no, that's the same question on Armenia. I think we have that answered. So last chance, we are just almost up to the hour. If there are any more questions.
Julia, hi, this is Jasmine.
I did see a question about Ukraine and I answered, but just for the interest of our attendees, the question was whether we've had any experience with Ukrainian students and their documents. I'm assuming this has to do with verification. We have been able to email the universities and receive verification confirmation from them. We've prepared our query letter in Ukrainian language, and that seems to help. And so far, we've been very successful. So I do encourage everyone to contact the institutions via their websites or their portals and emails. Thank you for that question.
And Jasmine, one of the things I've seen here at UT is that with Ukrainian applicants, anything can happen, and they could have everything for you, and then others can have nothing for you, or you might have to use unofficial documents. We just made the decision yesterday to use someone that had been to both U.S. schools and a Ukrainian school. Of course, they produced the U.S. school transcripts, but couldn't do more than unofficial Ukrainian documents, and we accepted that. So it's really a question of institutional flexibility and where you can do it. My problem historically has always been in cases like this, whereas I can be flexible on an unofficial document, I can't be flexible on no document. So if you need to go, if you're applying to my graduate school and your university was in Ukraine and you can't get me your baccalaureate or your whatever you've got, we could have a problem.
Yes.
True.
And well, you know, Robert, that's actually a perfect little segue into one of the resources that we've assembled. Just a little while ago, Acro actually had a Connect article. Connect's free if you're not already subscribed to it. You don't have to be an Acro member. You don't have to be an Edge subscriber, but Connect is free. And one of the things that we did there is we assembled some resources that would be useful for you when you're encountering students that are coming from Ukraine. In the link, I just put it into chat there. But one of the things that's linked is we've opened up the Edge profile. That's available for everyone. You don't need to have a subscription to get in there to do that. It's not the same link. It's a copy of the profile, but that link is available through the Understanding Higher Education in Ukraine. So that's something that we're trying to do. We've also got links to our A26 backpack work that we've been doing, which allows folks to kind of pack up their credentials, which is really something they should be able to take with them all around the world and get that recognition so that they don't lose all of that investment that they've already done in themselves. Because, you know, you're going to encounter those situations like Robert just described, where those documents are necessary. You need that. And so that that Article 26 backpack has tools to help folks keep those credentials with them. And there's information specific to Ukraine there. There's a lot that's out there, and that link will help get you started. Oh, and Julia, I think you're just muted right now.
Thanks, Drew. I'm looking through the chat and I see there's some more comments and questions that are coming up in the chat. So I know we're right up against time, but Jessica posted the where you can verify Ukraine credentials in the chat. And as far as waiving, Connie asked about waiving the certified English translations to for documents and transcripts from Ukraine. I think that's an institution by institution decision, you know, whether or not you require a certified English translation or not. So I don't know if anybody wants to address that specifically. And we also had a quick question about, for the Philippines, we check for program level recognition. Does a link provided earlier provide list of approved programs? I think if you go into those links, you can probably find that information, but it's not right there. You would have to.
Historically, yes, the CHED lists have always, they give the degree in the year or diploma if it's a, you know, a community college type situation.
Right. So what Dave said too, that it just gives the recognized institutions. That's what I'm saying. You're going to have to dig down a little bit, but that you should get the access to that information. All right, it's 2:59. Any last comments from any of the IESC or my good colleagues at ACRO?
Great work, guys.
Just go ahead and bookmark everything. If you want to check out how that system works, remember Lesotho, you're going to get that notification in the morning. So from now on, when you write in with your questions, go ahead and bookmark that for yourself. You'll know exactly when the IESC takes care of your question.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining us. Thank you to our panelists, and we will see you guys next month. Take care.